For nearly 500 years, a story was ignored, not loudly dismissed, quietly buried. In 1542, deep inside the Amazon, a Spanish friar named Gaspar de Carvajal wrote about something impossible. Not scattered tribes, cities, long houses packed with people, roads stretching between settlements, fortified towns rising above floodwaters, crowds so large they lined the riverbanks for miles. History chose not to believe him. The Amazon was supposed to be empty, too wet, too wild, so his words became legend. Then myth, then nothing. But centuries later, something changed. Not through excavation, through lasers fired from the sky. When those scans came back, they didn't reveal ruins. They revealed patterns, shapes, geometry where nature should have been chaos. Perfect circles, straight roads, massive structures buried beneath miles of jungle. The question is no longer whether Carvajal was right. The real question, what exactly was down there this entire time? It didn't begin with a headline. Quietly in fragments, 1977, deep in Brazil's state of Acre. A researcher named Ondamar Dias noticed something strange. Perfect geometric shapes carved into the earth, circles, squares, octagons, stretched over 300 meters across, too precise to be natural. But they only appeared when the forest was gone. Deforestation exposed them. Like scars on the land, for decades they sat unexplained. No one could see the full picture until technology caught up. A team led by Jose Iriarte flew over the Amazon with LiDAR, a system that doesn't see the forest, it sees through it. In 2020, their scans came back. At first, just data points, millions of them. But when the vegetation was stripped away digitally, something emerged. Hundreds of mound villages arranged in patterns, connected by straight roads aligned with precision, distances repeating 2.5 to 3 kilometers apart. Not random, planned. Then 2022. Over Bolivia's Llanos de Mojos, a team led by Heiko Prumers pushed further. Larger area, higher resolution. What they saw stopped them. Massive platforms, pyramids, entire urban centers. Sites like Landivar, Kotoka, not villages, cities. One researcher described it simply, they expected fragments. Instead, they found a landscape that had been built, engineered, organized. Suddenly, Carvajal's impossible story didn't sound so impossible anymore. But here's what doesn't make sense. If these places were this large, this structured, how did no one see them before? At first glance, the Amazon feels random. Endless forest, no logic. But that illusion breaks when the trees are removed. Digitally, what appears underneath is order. In the Bolivian lowlands, sites like Landivar and Kotoka emerge as designs. Massive platforms rise above the terrain. Conical pyramids, nearly 20 meters tall, stand at the center. Around them, rings of moats and defensive walls layered with precision. Then the roads. Not winding paths, straight lines. Raised causeways cutting across wetlands, some as wide as highways. They don't drift. They connect. From above, the pattern is unmistakable. A central core surrounded by smaller settlements, all linked together. A coordinated system. Further north in the upper Xingu, a different layout appears, but the logic feels the same. Circular towns organized around large central plazas, clusters of homes forming rings expanding outward. Again, straight roads, aligned, intentional. North to south, east to west, planned space built with rules. Then Ecuador, the Upano Valley reveals something even harder to ignore. Over 6,000 raised mounds, each one the base of a home, arranged in clusters, connected by roads stretching for kilometers. Some of these roads run 10, even 20 kilometers in near-perfect lines, cutting through hills, linking entire communities. A network scaled across the landscape. Here's the detail that changes everything. These cities weren't built to last. No stone monuments, no towering ruins, just earth, wood, organic materials. From the ground, they disappear completely, swallowed by roots, erased by time. But beneath that surface, the layout is still there. The connections, the intention. If structures this vast stayed hidden for centuries, what else is still sitting beneath the forest, waiting to be seen? For centuries, the forest had the advantage. Dense canopy, layer after layer of leaves and shadow. From the ground, visibility drops to meters. From the air, all you see is green. Whatever was built below stayed hidden, until the method changed. Light. LiDAR in light detection and ranging. An aircraft flies overhead and fires laser pulses toward the Earth. Millions per second. Each pulse travels down, strikes something, and returns. Some bounce off the canopy, others slip through gaps. A fraction make it all the way to the ground. That's the key. Each return carries time. Time becomes distance. Distance becomes depth. Layer by layer, the system records everything. Treetops, mid-canopy, the forest floor. At first, it looks like noise, a cloud of points suspended in space. Then the filtering begins. Vegetation is stripped away digitally, until only the terrain remains. That's when the illusion collapses. Flat ground reveals edges. Natural slopes break into straight lines. Shapes emerge. Circles too perfect to be random, angles too precise for erosion. Elevations that form platforms, roads, boundaries. In Bolivia, when Heiko Prumers processed his data, the transformation was immediate. Where there had been forest, cities. In Acre, Jose Iriarte's scans revealed entire landscapes of mound villages, connected by cardinal roads. Not guessed, measured, mapped, verified. For the first time, researchers weren't limited by what they could physically see. They could scan through kilometers of jungle in hours. What used to take years of fieldwork, now revealed in a single dataset. But here's the unsettling part. These scans have covered only a fraction of the Amazon. Tiny sections compared to the scale of the basin. And almost every time LiDAR is used, it finds something. If this much has already been uncovered, what happens when the rest of the forest is finally seen? Once the patterns became clear, a harder question followed. Who built all of this? Not temporary camps, not scattered tribes, settled landscapes, engineered over generations. In Bolivia, the Casarabe culture, active for nearly 1,000 years before European contact. They built in earth layer by layer, raised platforms above flood level, shaped pyramids from compacted soil, dug moats and canals to control water that could nourish or destroy. Around their central sites, smaller communities formed. Distances repeat, roots align, coordination, not isolation. Further east, the Upper Xingu. Settlements organized around large communal plazas, ceremony, governance, gathering. Homes formed rings around these centers, protected by wooden palisades. Straight roads linked village to village, socially, not just physically. Networks of people bound by structure and shared planning. Then the Upano Valley, much older. Over 2,000 years, thousands of house platforms arranged with intent, connected by roads that ignore terrain, as if the land had been negotiated with. So what kind of life existed here? Not primitive survival. Managed environments, fields enriched with dark, fertile soil, created by mixing charcoal and organic waste over time. Forests that weren't wild but curated, fruit trees planted deliberately, crops rotated, water controlled through canals and reservoirs, even fish managed through ponds and traps. This wasn't a people struggling against the jungle. They were reshaping it, living with it, but also above it. Step back and look at the scale. Hundreds of sites, thousands of structures, populations possibly reaching hundreds of thousands. It starts to feel less like scattered cultures, and more like something we didn't expect to find here at all. A form of urban life adapted perfectly to the forest. That raises a deeper question. If these societies were this organized, this widespread, why don't we know their names? For most of modern history, the Amazon was treated as absence, empty space on the map, a green void. The dominant model, small scattered tribes living only along major rivers. The reasoning seemed solid. Acidic, nutrient-poor soil, unstable climate. Large populations shouldn't have been possible. So when early accounts described cities, they were dismissed. Gaspar de Carvajal wrote in 1542 about dense settlements and fortified towns, detailed, consistent, but they didn't fit the model, labeled exaggeration, fantasy. That belief held for centuries, until evidence stacked up from the ground itself. In Acre, hundreds of geometric earthworks, some over 2,000 years old, appeared once forest was cleared. By the 2010s, more than 450 sites documented. In the Upper Xingu, Michael Heckenberger revealed settlement clusters, plazas, roads, defensive structures spread across roughly 250 square kilometers. Integrated systems, then numbers that challenged everything. Based on settlement density in Acre and Mato Grosso, some researchers propose that these areas alone could have supported nearly 1 million people between 1250 and 1500 CE, deep in the interior, not along rivers. LiDAR confirmed what ground surveys couldn't fully see. In Bolivia, urban centers like Cotoca and Landivar showed clear planning, monumental architecture, regional connectivity. In Ecuador, the Upano Valley pushed the timeline back to at least 500 BC. Thousands of structures, long-distance roads, a long tradition. And the soil itself told the same story. Dark, fertile earth created by human activity. Charcoal, organic waste, controlled burning. It doesn't form naturally at this scale. The land wasn't limiting people. People were redesigning the land. Piece by piece, the old assumption collapsed. The Amazon wasn't empty. It was managed, cultivated, structured, human-shaped environment mistaken for wilderness. That realization forces a difficult question. If generations of historians believed this was an untouched forest, were we not just missing the evidence? Were we misunderstanding the entire history of the Amazons? By the time Europeans pushed deeper into South America, something had already changed. Later expeditions, following the same river routes, described by Carvajal, didn't find cities. They found silence. Small groups, gaps where dense populations were supposed to be. What happened? One explanation begins with timing. Carvajal's account comes from 1542, right at the edge of first sustained European contact. And with that contact came something far more destructive than weapons. Disease, smallpox, measles, influenza, epidemics moving faster than people, spreading along trade routes long before direct encounters. Communities didn't just shrink, they collapsed. Entire social networks depended on population, labor to maintain roads, people to manage fields, coordination to control water, remove enough individuals, and the structure fails. But disease alone doesn't explain everything. Some societies, like the Casarabe in Bolivia, appear to have declined earlier, around 1400 CE, before Europeans arrived. Another pressure, climate. Prolonged drought has been identified in the region. In landscapes that relied heavily on water management, canals dry, reservoirs shrink, crop cycles break. A system built to control water becomes vulnerable when water disappears. Then the environment itself. The Amazon doesn't preserve. Wood decays, thatch disappears, earth erodes. Without continuous maintenance, structures soften, flatten, vanish. Give it decades, then centuries, and a city becomes invisible. There's also conflict. As populations shrink and resources become unstable, competition intensifies. Defensive earthworks, moats, walls suggest protection mattered. So not one cause. Pressure layered over time, disease from the outside, environmental stress from within, social systems breaking under both. As populations declined, the forest moved in, slowly, quietly. Paths disappeared first, then plazas, then entire settlements, until all that remained was canopy, which leads to a question still unanswered. Did these civilizations truly vanish, or are their descendants still here, living in forms we no longer recognize? Even with LiDAR revealing structures across multiple regions, the interpretation is not fully settled. Seeing something is not the same as agreeing on what it means. Take Bolivia's Llanos de Mojos. The data clearly shows large constructed landscapes, platforms, moats, causeways. But the debate, are these cities in the strict sense, or large ceremonial and regional aggregation centers? Some archaeologists argue the term urban may be too strong. Unlike stone cities in the Old World, these Amazonian systems leave no permanent architecture above ground. Everything is earth-based, degradable. Classification becomes difficult. Then scale. Population estimates for parts of southwestern Amazonia based on settlement density suggest figures reaching hundreds of thousands, possibly up to 1 million. But critics point out, LiDAR shows structure, not population directly. A large platform does not automatically equal dense habitation. A connected road system does not confirm continuous occupation at the same time. It's a model built from spatial inference, not a census. Even in Acre, where more than 450 geoglyph sites have been documented, researchers caution that not all sites were contemporaneous. Some span centuries of reuse, shifting occupation. In Ecuador's Upano Valley, the discovery of thousands of mounds and long roads reshaped timelines dramatically. But even there, questions remain: dense urban centers or loosely connected clusters of large villages. Functioning as a network over generations, a deeper tension exists inside archaeology. Two interpretations side by side. One sees Amazonia as complex but non-urban, adaptive, dispersed, environmentally integrated. The other sees emerging urbanism, low-density cities, spread across forest and floodplain, fundamentally different but still highly organized. Neither side rejects the evidence. They disagree on language and scale. LiDAR reveals topography, not culture. It cannot show governance, language, hierarchy, or daily life. So the debate continues. What exactly defines a city in a rainforest environment? And are we trying to fit Amazonian societies into old world definitions that were never designed for them? After decades of archaeology, satellite mapping, and LiDAR, the Amazon is still only partially read, not because the evidence isn't there, but because most of it has never been scanned. The surveys in Bolivia's Llanos de Mojos covered a tiny fraction of the region, yet still revealed 26 sites, including major centers like Landivar and Cotoca. In Brazil's Acre and Mato Grosso, hundreds of geoglyphs have been identified, but they exist across an enormous landscape still largely unmapped at high resolution. In Ecuador's Upano Valley, we now know of a dense network of mounds and roads, but only within a limited corridor. Beyond these zones lies the unknown, entire basins never systematically scanned. Vast stretches of western Amazon, remote northern tributaries, interfluvial zones far from any modern settlement. The real question is not what we have found, but what we haven't even looked at yet. Then time, we are seeing snapshots. A site dated 1200 CE here, another spanning 500 BCE to 600 CE there. The full timeline, how these systems grew, interacted, shifted, is incomplete. Were these regions connected in broader networks? Or independent cultural experiments developing similar solutions in parallel? We don't know. And even when we find structures, we are missing the human layer. No writing systems survive, no direct historical records from the builders themselves, no preserved narratives, only earth, only geometry, only patterns left behind. We can map the shape of civilization, but not fully recover its voice. As technology improves, more airborne LiDAR, higher resolution, broader coverage, another possibility emerges quietly. That what we call discoveries today are only the edges of something much larger, something continuous, something still buried under canopy that has never been digitally stripped away. Which leads to the final question this entire story circles back to. If so much of the Amazon's past is still unscanned, how much history is still waiting, completely unseen beneath the forest today? For centuries, the Amazon was described as empty, too harsh, too chaotic. But that version of history no longer holds, not because of speculation, because of data, geoglyphs carved into the earth in Acre, grids of mound villages across the upper, Xingu at urban-scale landscapes in Bolivia's Llanos de Mojos, ancient road networks, and thousands of structures in Ecuador's Upano Valley. All of it revealed the same way, by stripping away the forest with LiDAR. What emerges is not a single discovery, but a pattern, a repeated signal across thousands of kilometers, human design beneath the canopy. And yet, even now, the picture is incomplete. We are only seeing where we have looked, only mapping where we have scanned. The rest of the basin remains untouched by high-resolution survey, unread. That leaves a quiet tension hanging over everything we think we know. If entire urban systems could remain concealed for centuries under forest, what else is still there waiting? Maybe this is not a finished story. Maybe it is only the first chapter of something far larger, something never truly lost, only concealed. If you want to keep uncovering stories like this, subscribe, because the more we look into the past, the more it seems like we've only just begun to see it.